As promised, in today's video, I'm going to give you a deep dive into Larian Studios' recent video called Baldur's Gate 3 Returning to the City After 20 Years. This is like a gameplay slash scenery slash behind the scenes type of video. And in my opinion, this was one of the coolest videos that Larian has released, or one of the coolest reveals since they revealed the Underdark to us, which was back in June of 2020. If you guys remember that reveal, let me know below in the comments. Now, I do have a sponsor for today's video, Factor, but more on that after we get through the first scene. Here we go. This first shot is a wallpaper waiting to happen, and this is, of course, a beautiful view of the city of Baldur's Gate. And the camera perspective has us in like a northwesterly direction from the city. And actually, I can bring up a map of the city, the only map that we actually have in early access. If we zoom in on the city over here, the camera in this shot is somewhere in this region right here, overlooking the upper city, and you can see Ramazith's tower. You can't really see the lower city that well because it is lower in elevation, and the angle that we're currently looking over the city at, it's really hard to see. You can see Duskhawk Hill in the distance, and then of course Wyrm's Crossing Bridge. Now if I bring up a still image of this shot, right there is Wyrm's Crossing Bridge, and you can actually cross this bridge in Baldur's Gate 1, although it's much emptier back then than it is now. This gigantic fortress that you can see on the bridge is a Flaming Fist checkpoint slash stronghold. So the Flaming Fist has control over everyone that uses this bridge to get across into the outer city of Baldur's Gate. Now, to the left of the bridge, this gigantic hill is called Duskhawk Hill, and it's named after the Chianthar Duskhawk bird species, of course. And this hill actually does have a series of sea caves within it, which would be really cool to explore, but I wouldn't count on exploring that in Baldur's Gate 3. I guess you never know, though. And the important thing about Duskhawk Hill is if you can see it and you're walking towards it, you're probably moving in an easterly direction or a southeasterly direction if you're coming from the upper city. And around the Duskhawk Hill is the majority of the city's outer city. So when you come across the bridge right here, there's all of these districts that make up the outer city of Baldur's Gate, and they go swing all the way around Duskhawk Hill, and it brings you right up to the Basilisk Gate and then into the actual inner city itself. Now, the inner city is divided into an upper city and a lower city, and all of these houses and these buildings that we can see right here that are a little bit closer to the camera make up the upper city. And the upper city is home to the city's wealthy, the important government buildings, and the temple district, and things of that nature. We can see the lower city, but really only in the distance over here, because the majority of the lower city is actually below this wall right here. And this wall divides the upper city from the lower city, but we can't see the lower city that well because Baldur's Gate is a bit of a bowl shape. So the upper city is higher in elevation than the lower city, and from this angle, the lower city is just not really that visible, except in the distance right here where we can see the Eastway and the Brampton districts. Now, this gigantic tower that everybody is probably staring at is called Ramazith's Tower, or at least it used to be called Ramazith's Tower. And Ramazith was a very wealthy mage who had this tower constructed to house all sorts of powerful artifacts, magical items, and even magical creatures. But the tower is now owned by a wizard by the name of the Roakin, as Ramazith has gone mysteriously missing, or he's dead, or maybe both of them. Now, the Roakin is mentioned several times in Baldur's Gate 3's early access, so I think we're going to be actually going to this tower and exploring it a bit. Just be careful, because many of the magical, dangerous creatures that Ramazith housed within his tower might still be lurking around there. But before we move on to the next scene, I do have a quick message from today's welcomed video sponsor, Factor. Factor is a meal prep, cook, and delivery service that will drop off fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep. All you gotta do is heat and enjoy. And yeah, they're pretty dang delicious. There's a ton of reasons why this may be the service for you, especially now in the summer, as you may not have as much time to cook while you're out doing all those fun summer activities. These meals will also allow you to skip that trip to the crowded grocery store, and perhaps even more importantly, say goodbye to most of the cleanup process with the pots, the pans, the spatulas with the holes in them, the measuring cups, the darn cutting boards that barely fit in the freaking sink. Now, if you are someone that loves all that stuff, well, sometimes you deserve a break too. Taking a look at their website, you can choose from 34 plus chef-prepared, dietitian-approved weekly options, and these are put into the categories of Chef's Choice, Keto, Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Vegan and Veggie. Just look at this garlic herb salmon. Oh my god. There's also a ton of snack add-ons, 45 plus, and this includes smoothies, which are perfect for when I'm gaming, apple cinnamon pancakes, which is not recommended to eat when in close proximity of any keyboard, bacon and cheddar bites, and much, much more. So head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code WolfheartFPS to get 50% off your first Factor box. That is factor75.com, code WolfheartFPS for half off your first delicious box. Don't eat the box itself. Back to the video. All right, moving on to the next scene, but actually first, let me just point out that this little symbol of the ship right here is a symbol for the city of Baldur's Gate.
Cities are incredibly hard to make in RPGs because you have to make sure that every single nook and cranny has something to do. You have to make sure that it's different, so you have to be incredibly creative, given that the name...
So Sven's talking about making cities in an RPG being incredibly challenging, but this is especially true for a company like Larian Studios, who is known to do really content-rich areas. So Larian Studios games, when you come across something, there's probably going to be a lot of content there, while a lot of other games, you might go past like a series of buildings or, you know, an area in the woodlands where there's really nothing there. It's just there for visual presentation. That's not Larian's style. So undertaking, you know, a massive task such as the city of Baldur's Gate, although I'm sure some things will be blocked off in this city, is just quite the undertaking and really exciting to think about exploring. Now, we have seen this shot before from a closer perspective in a previous video, so I'm going to kind of go quickly in this, quicker than I did in the first scene. You guys can see Duskhawk Hill right here, so if you were walking towards the hill, you would be moving in an eastern direction. This camera perspective is from the city's lower city. Like the other one was kind of looking over the upper city. Now we're down in the lower city looking up, and you can see the wall that divides the lower city from the upper city, but you can't really see the upper city itself. Now this dome right here, the stained glass dome ceiling, is of course Sorcerous Sundries, a magical shop that you can visit in Baldur's Gate 1, and we will absolutely be visiting it in Baldur's Gate 3. We're going to see some gameplay of it very, very shortly here. This building right here, I'm still speculating, is the Blushing Mermaid. The main reason for that guess is because the sign on the front of the building, I think, is a mermaid. Some people have guessed it's a dragon breathing fire. Other people say that they see a fish, but I'm still seeing a mermaid right here. Also, the location of it being very close to Sorcerous Sundries does fit the lore. Now, the Low Lantern is another tavern, but that tavern is located on a ship that is still floating in the harbor, according to the Descent into Avernus adventure module. So I don't think it's the Low Lantern, even though, you know, the first time you see it, you think of that because you see the ship. Now, this building right here is still up for major speculation, but after getting this shot, I'm more convinced than I was before that this is the Seven Suns Merchant Organization building. You can see these little symbols down here, and you can see I think there's 7 circles, and the Seven Suns does have 7 circles on its logo. Although this representation of the logo is a little bit different than it used to be, I'm thinking that this is the Seven Suns. Now, if this is true, this is probably a merchant building where a lot of trading activities go on. Maybe there's some caravan operations here and things of that nature. Now, you guys can see there's a lot of activity going on in the city, and if I hit play right here, you can see everybody walking around. Very, very hyped for us to be able to be down in the streets and walking around ourselves. The time is coming soon, my friends. Let's press on.
Baldur's Gate, the city, was really going to be the thing that people were going to be talking.
And now we have a view of the city from more of the eastern side of the city. So we're kind of hopping around to different locations. And in this view, we can actually see a building in the upper city. Right here is the wall that divides the lower city from the upper city. And this building right here, I am guessing, is High Hall due to the architecture, and it's definitely in the upper city. It looks pretty grand, and you know, the pointy architecture here looks very similar to how High Hall is portrayed not only in BG1 but just in the general lore. High Hall is the city's main government building. It has the offices of the dukes in it, and there are 4 dukes of Baldur's Gate, with one of them being the Grand Duke, which is Alder Ravengard, and also the court system is here and a few other things. Now, we can also see Sorcerous Sundries from a different angle right here, your shop for all of your magical needs. And then past Sorcerous Sundries, you can see part of the Blushing Mermaid is what I'm speculating right now. We were just looking at this tavern from a different angle. And then to the left, this building right here is the Harbormasters office, and the Harbormaster is currently Darren Kellenoth, a lawful human. I think he's lawful neutral, who of course controls the port operations and taxation. Basically, if you sail a ship into the harbor, you have to stop in with the harbor master first. This building appears to be Seven Suns, if going by my speculation, and I think that's all we have to talk about. So let's move on.
People were going to be talking about.
The city of Baldur's Gate is seamless, which it originally wasn't.
You only can judge the game when you have all the components together, and if the mix doesn't work, we start over.
Now, this is a beautiful shot of Wyrm's Crossing Bridge. And if you guys remember in the beginning of the trailer, we were looking at Wyrm's Crossing Bridge all the way from over here. And now we have an up-close view of kind of the eastern side of the bridge. I went a little bit too far here. Let me back it up. And you can see the Flaming Fist building right here, the stronghold, the check-in point, the little gate, I guess you could call it. And actually, we got to see a close-up of this in the Gortash trailer, and I'll have that come in right now. Now, also, to the right, you, of course, can see, you know, some of the outer city districts. And like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, we have Duskhawk Hill right here. The outer city districts wrap all around the hill, and then it brings you to the city of Baldur's Gate, which is somewhere on in the distance on the left side of the screen. You'll also notice that this bridge has a ton of structures built on it, and that is because in modern day Forgotten Realms, the bridge actually has taverns and shops and all sorts of buildings that you can stop in when you're crossing. So be ready, because we're going to be crossing this bridge pretty much 100% guaranteed at this point. So there's going to be all sorts of content on the bridge itself. Before we move on to the next scene, this character kind of looks like a monk. Not entirely sure, but look at the weapon, look at the clothing. Possible that it's not, but this could also be a little foreshadowing for the upcoming panel from Hell on July 7th. And you'll also notice that this, I'm guessing, custom character has ear piercings, and we don't currently have access to customized piercings in the character creator in Baldur's Gate 3's early access. You do get to mess around with some piercings if you play the Wildheart Barbarian, but it's not in the character creator. I think this is something we all expected to be in the character creator, but it's cool to see a custom character, supposedly a custom character, rocking a piercing.
At some point, he said, like, can't we just connect?
And now we have a shot from the lower city, almost down in the water, actually, looking up at the Harbormasters office, which I mentioned only a few minutes ago. There's really nothing else that I caught in this scene, aside from these characters right here. You have, it looks like 3 halflings and some other humanoid figure. They're all wearing their hoods and kind of like grouped up really tightly, maybe secretively talking about something. Maybe this is a group of shadow thieves. Maybe they're members of the guild, the city's criminal organization, or maybe it's just really windy out that day and they're all wearing hoods. Just note, Baldur's Gate, especially in the lower city and the outer city, not always the safest place on Faerun.
Everything, and
then a beautiful shot of the bell tower, and Lae'zel is standing up here. And also note that there's a chest up here, so remember that when you get to the city yourself. We have a nice view of the actual harbor. Really excited to see Larian's, you know, animated ships out there coming and going. And then over here to the right, we have the Water Queen's house, which is a temple to Umberlee, the bitch queen. Ooh, that's what she's called in the lore. That's what she's called in the lore. Okay. And basically, sailors and fishermen will typically come to this temple and pay homage, say some prayers for safe passage when they head out into the river Chianthar and also out into the Sea of Swords.
And that was a very interesting day.
One of the things that's done is it's brought a level of believability and immersion and also complexity.
And this is a nice eastern shot of the Wyrm's Crossing Bridge, which we just talked about with that speculated monk character. But we have a really nice view. You can see all the detail that Larian is putting into this game. It's pretty incredible. You have some sort of shop up here, maybe a home. And actually down on the bottom, it almost looks like we might be able to walk down here underneath the bridge. I wouldn't put it past Larian. The only thing I'm worried about here is, oh yeah, this is of course the Flaming Fist stronghold, the checkpoint that I talked about on the bridge. What I'm worried about here is the ship with its sails. It doesn't look like it's going to make it under the bridge, but hey, I guess that would be pretty entertaining to witness, right? And then we have another shot from the lower city. We're down in the harbor looking at the Water Queen's house right here, the temple to Umberlee. It's quite the beautiful structure. I can't wait to walk in there. I know there is a statue of Umberlee, which is coming up in this trailer here shortly. And then in the distance, I actually think this is the Sea Tower of Baldur, and I thought it would be a little bit bigger and more intimidating than that, but maybe that's Larian's version of it. And the Sea Tower is a building that kind of goes out into the harbor a little bit, and it's the Flaming Fist headquarters. It's also the barracks. I think there's a prison there, cells for prisoners, and also it's like a defense outpost for any attacking force that may come at the city from the sea.
Now was this seamless giant.
Right here is a statue of what most people are predicting is, or speculating is, Baldurin, the founder of the city of Baldur's Gate. You have a bunch of Baldurians down here, one of the automatons right here, which are called Steel Watchers in Baldur's Gate 3, controlled by Gortash.
Organism.
And then another street side view, and I just can't wait to be walking around the city myself with an automaton. And right here actually looks like this guy right here in the green really looks like Aridin from Early Access. I don't want to expand on that too much because some people haven't played Early Access, but I think we know this character, and it looks like Sorcerous Sundries. You can tell that this is Sorcerous Sundries, that magical shop, because of the wizard's hat right here sign. It looks like there's an automaton or a steel watcher or whatever we want to call him blocking the entrance and telling Aridin, you ain't coming in here, my friend, which is interesting to think about. Also on the right side, we have this tent right here, which may be part of, I'm not sure, but I know there's going to be a carnival in Baldur's Gate 3, just like there was one in both of the original games. But that could be the start of whatever carnival is going on in the city. And also there's another rather suspicious looking character here, hood on, looking down, not letting people see her face.
And it really felt good. It's been able to look out of.
We have a Starion right here looking down into the lower city once again. A nice view of the Water Queen's house, the temple to Umberlee. And I don't think there's anything else in this shot. Looks like he's at some sort of tavern, maybe the Blushing Mermaid, because I think this is the Seven Suns building right here, but you can see a nice little table that you can sit down at.
The window and see down the city slope, so you're seeing down toward the docks, and you're like, one of my teammates.
And then another angle of the lower city. Larian's really focusing on the lower city for this presentation. You have Sorcerous Sundries up here in the top right. I think this building right here is the counting house of the city, which is like the mob-run bank, and it's ran by a dwarf by the name of Rakath, or Rakath Glitterbeard, who is actually a guild kingpin. Remember, the guild is one of the most actually the most powerful criminal organization in the city, and he owns this, and he is the guild kingpin for the Steeps district, which is the district where the counting house is located. If you do end up trying to pull off a heist, get ready to face stone golems and also water elementals.
They might be running around.
And another view of the Harbormasters office, the temple to Umberlee. We have the wall dividing the lower city from the upper city, and I think that is probably part of High Hall up there in the top right.
Down there.
We worked on it as a painting almost. You start with a sketch, a very basic line, and then you...
Now this scene, holy cow, this video is getting pretty long. Let's see if I can speed it up just a little bit without leaving out any detail. This scene has been giving me some major problems as I work to try to translate the paper that this kid is holding up. I've tried the Thoras alphabet, Dwarven, Elvish, Sylvan, Giant, Infernal, and I just can't figure it out. Perhaps the writing is just a bit too stylized and I just can't, figure out what alphabet it actually is. You would think it has to be some common alphabet because the kid's holding it up to the citizens of Baldur's Gate, but I don't know what it is. What we can see is a soldier fighting what appears to be like a crocodile, a ship that is sailing, and then the top right, it shows some tents. Maybe this is like an advertisement for the carnival that's in town or something like that. I'm not sure. This kid is awfully, I don't know, he looks a little bit suspicious. I'm not going to lie. I feel like he's going to be screaming, "Hear ye! Hear ye!" And I'm definitely going to be pulling a Jamie Lannister on this little shit if he does that, minus the incest part. But he ain't going to be alive in my city, all right? Because that shit was annoying. All right, next.
Then you just start adding layers.
This is a statue of the evil goddess of the sea, Umberlee. And this, of course, is within the Water Queen's house that we've been talking about quite a lot in this video.
And layers.
We have a gargoyle,
we can
Lae'zel,
put lots more of the city onto the screen than they could in 1998.
and then a beautiful aerial shot of Wyrm's Crossing Bridge once again, but this time our camera is kind of facing us, looking southeast, and the city of Baldur's Gate is this, well, actually, this it's really hard to figure out with the camera. Forget it. The city of Baldur's Gate is on the opposite end. If the camera has to pull a 180 if you guys want to see the actual city. But this is the bridge, and if you kept going to the top right up here and you kept following the roads that way, you'd end up in Baragos, Nashkel, Nation of Am, and all the way down to the desert nation of Kalimshan. Now this district right here is the outer city district of Rivington. It does look like we will be able to walk through it. And then on the left right here we have some tents, and that makes me wonder if this is where the Flaming Fist is forcing the refugees from the city of Elturel to stay right now. Not sure, but look at the attention to detail. Makes you really excited for the full game.
We can do something.
And in this very interesting room right here, of course, has these automatons, which are called Steel Watchers, that are led by Gortash. I have a feeling that this room is kind of like an experimental room where they put these things together, but also it's probably connected to the room where the control center is for these damn things. So those of you guys that end up going against Gortash or whatever you decide to do, you might find yourself in here trying to put a stop to the robot madness.
That is more
This is a spectator, and I'm almost certain that this is the Elfsong Tavern. Over here is the Thoras alphabet, and that translates to drinks, and then there's some drinks below it. And the Elfsong Tavern is known to have a stuffed baby beholder hanging in its dining area, and although this is a spectator, spectators and beholders are both aberrations. They look very similar, even though they are quite different. Beholders are extremely evil, spectators are more neutral, and beholders are a lot more powerful than spectators too. But if you guys remember in Dark Alliance, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, the ARPG series, when you went into the Elfsong Tavern, you could see the baby beholder hanging from the wall, and it looks exactly the same as this scene. Like the ropes and the way it's hanging, everything looks very similar. So I think this is the Elfsong Tavern.
Immersive, richer, has more texture to it.
It feels like you are walking around a place where there are
And then we have this beautiful scene of the city streets for the player character. This is some actual gameplay right here. And the first thing I noticed, or I looked for, was this sign right here, which shows a mug. And in Baldur's Gate 1, the Elfsong Tavern is represented with a mug. And we just saw the hanging spectator. So I'm thinking that this is probably like an exterior area of the Elfsong Tavern. And that's pretty cool because it's a really classic tavern that a lot of us have been to in multiple games.
lots of people living.
We have another hooded figure right here, and I'm starting to wonder if these hooded figures are actually placeholders for, you know, Dragonborn characters or some other race that Larian doesn't want us to see right now that they're going to reveal to us perhaps at the panel from hell. Something to think about.
Their actual lives.
As you guys can see, the city of Baldur's Gate is quite the diverse city in terms of its racial makeup, and it's also known to be quite tolerant. So even if you're one of the more exotic races, it's not going to be as big of a deal when you go to Baldur's Gate as it may be when you go to another city. Right here across the street is, of course, Sorcerous Sundries, and this character seems to be standing at some sort of tavern. You can see some wine glasses right here.
You have crowds that are walking around, can talk to pretty much anybody.
Right here we have one of the automatons standing tall, some flaming fist members standing over a citizen that appears to either be dead or knocked out. And Larian is, of course, placing a lot of emphasis on the nooses in this city. So I'm assuming that Gortash has taken control and he's a bit of a tyrannical ruler and does not put up with anybody that has, you know, a different opinion or anything like that. So clearly the automatons and also the nooses are trying to scare the citizens into doing what they are told.
And they react to every single thing. It's very alive in that sense.
Every person that you meet.
We have Shadowheart right here talking to this guy, and I have no idea who this guy is. If you guys have any theories, put them below in the video description. And we appear to be in some sort of, I want to say tavern. I see a wine bottle on the ground right here.
In Baldur's Gate.
This is Lacrissa, a character that's in early access. I won't talk too much about it because it's not really a spoiler, but I won't get into who this character actually is. But you do meet this character in early access.
Has got a story to them.
Now this guy is reading something and he seems to be quite worried or concerned. There's a lot going on in the city. And I also noticed that little shit. I think that's him right there. Here he is again, holding up his poster. So he's clearly trying to get some message across. And here we have some of the origin characters running through what appears to be the Basilisk Gate. And the reason why I say the Basilisk Gate is because we can see Duskhawk Hill right here. So this is the outer city, and they're walking into the lower city of Baldur's Gate.
Have done up to the city really matter. You can really feel the conclusion of everything.
This is a really cool shot, and the reason why I'm saying that it's cool, apart from just the view being really good of the Water Queen's house right here, and also actually you can see the Sea Tower of Baldur over Will's head right here. But if you look at mostly Astarion here, it really appears as if they all just woke up. So that is telling me that we probably are going to be staying at the taverns in the city, and these guys probably just got up from a long rest. I'm really excited to see how that's going to work. And one more thing I want to point out right here is it does appear as if these characters are standing on an upper level of the building that I was speculating is the Blushing Mermaid Tavern that we talked about earlier in the video, because you can see the parts of the ship.
Gathering there.
We actually build anticipation through all these characters that you've met.
That is Volo, a very important character in the Forgotten Realms.
Situations that you've been through.
And this is one of the coolest scenes in all of the video, because this does appear as if it is the Szarr mansion. And the Szarr family was a mercantile family that was murdered by a rival business. And then the city decided to turn the Szarr estate into the city's cemetery. And if I bring up a map here quickly, you can see right here, we have the upper city, the lower city, and over here is the district of Tumbledown, which is part of the outer city. It's not connected to the other districts. It's part of the outer city, but it is now a cemetery. So I think we're going to be going to Tumbledown and also going to the Szarr mansion. And it's important to note that Cazador Szarr, even though the family was murdered, some of them are still alive, or should I say undead, as Cazador Szarr is a vampire lord. I won't talk too much about this because of spoilers, but you can see Astarion standing here looking at the Szarr mansion. I think it's the Szarr mansion.
All the stories that you have been following.
And this is actually also another really interesting scene. This takes place inside Sorcerous Sundries. You can tell because you can see the stained glass windows right here. And we have 4 what appear to be portals. To where? No idea. I've seen some people speculating. The purple one is Shadowfell. The green one is the Feywild. The orange one is the Hells. And then the other one is, I don't know, something else. I don't know if that would really be a thing in Sorcerous Sundries, to be able to just walk through a portal and go to hell. But, I mean, I guess you never know. I'm just really excited to come to this building and actually figure it out when we get to the city. Definitely something we could speculate on for days.
All the decisions that you've been making, they all come to fruition in that lower city.
And the great thing is, if you so choose, you can be another bad thing that's happening to the city. You can arrive
and this scene right here has caused quite the controversy. I'm partially responsible for it because I didn't look into it too hard in my latest video. I just quickly said something. You have Astarion here casting some sort of fire spell or cantrip. And as you guys can see, there's a huge explosion. And when you just look at it one time, the size of the explosion makes you think that it is Fireball. And the reason why it would be a big deal if it was Fireball, if Astarion was not using a scroll or a magical item, is because Arcane Trickster rogues don't get Fireball until, or access to Fireball until level 14, when they can branch out into the evocation spell list. And that was going to tell us a little bit about the max level in Baldur's Gate 3, but you can throw all of that out because it appears as if it's just Firebolt. And thank you to Jaboon Fade on my Discord server for taking some pictures and explaining this after I said it. You can see that there is some grease on the ground right here, and also just the Firebolt is quite small. The explosion is huge, but that's because of the grease on the ground. I do also want to point out that it's just going to be so much fun on like a second or third playthrough to just do crazy stuff in the city, like cast Fireball on everybody that's around, try like a pure murder hobo run, try to actually destroy the city in its entirety, make everything dead except the automatons. That's a challenge for you guys.
all over it.
Now, this beautiful character is a tiefling named Elfira. I don't want to talk too much about her because it would probably be in the realm of spoilers, but she is a tiefling from the city of Elturel, and some people are speculating that she could be a possible companion.
We felt like the city was our destination.
We spent, I think, 3 times, 4 times as much effort on the city than we originally planned.
There's some automatons, and then this scene right here appears to be a priestess of the evil goddess of the sea, Umberlee, or a cleric of Umberlee. I don't know if she's like teaching priestesses in training or something like that. Not really sure what's going on. You got somebody laying on the ground right here. Maybe she's teaching them how to heal this character. Something like that. But really cool armor. Not going to lie. It'd be cool if we get to wear some of that, which I think we will.
The result, the feeling of walking in there is...
And then we have Shadowheart walking down the street, and you can see another automaton and another body laying on the floor. So the Flaming Fist and these automatons seem to be pretty brutal with the way that they're treating the citizens of Baldur's Gate. The only other thing in this shot, somebody said that this was Fiona from Shrek. It's kind of funny, I'm not going to lie. But in front of Fiona appears to be the sign of someone in robes praying, and I'm going to just take a wild guess right now and say that this is the temple to Ilmater, the god of suffering, which is in the lower city.
It's just fantastic.
You have this.
And right here, ladies and gentlemen, we have a Holyphant, and Holyphants are very good creatures of the upper planes. And The most famous Holyphant of them all is Lulu, who is an important character in the Descent into Avernus adventure module. I did narrate that entire campaign a couple years ago. I'll leave a link in the video description below. It is kind of like a prologue of events to Baldur's Gate 3, so knowing that story is important. I'll probably do some lore videos on it in the near future as well, but it's just so cool to see a Holyphant. But look at the hat that the Holyphant is wearing. That makes me worry that it's part of the circus that's in town right now. Or maybe this Holyphant is just having a good time putting a hat on, but really, really cool to know that we're going to be able to encounter this creature, and possibly this is even Lulu herself, which would be even cooler. That would be a magnificent moment.
Constant jostling of things.
We have some characters playing cards right here. I wonder if we'll have access to any mini games. Not sure, but it would be pretty cool to play some cards. And they're in some tavern here. I don't recognize the symbols though.
That are very much of the real world, and then you can indulge in the.
And then we're back in Sorcerous Sundries, and we have like some sort of fire elemental creature here that doesn't appear to be hostile. Seems more so like a demonstration of magic, with our favorite wizard Gale walking around.
Completely fantastical.
And then when you walk into the city, the noise of everybody talking to each other, the knowledge
The outside of Sorcerous Sundries.
that everywhere you look, you can
A statue of Baldurin, the founder of the city of Baldur's Gate, I think.
go there and you can do something. The knowledge that you can fly through it.
And then we have Gale flying from this room to the rooftop over here, which is really cool because we know that Larian Studios has taken verticality in a CRPG to an entirely new level. And if you guys have played Early Access, you would already know this. And Gale is flying to this rooftop right here. The interesting thing is you can see feathers right here. And we do know that Gale has a pet Tressum, and I'll have a picture of a Tressum pop up right now. So perhaps this is like some sort of side quest for him as he searches for his Tressum.
It's great. So the thing that I
Beautiful view of the lower
was
city.
the most afraid of when we started
Another
making this
view of
game
the lower
turned out to
city.
be the thing that I'm the
Worms
most proud
Crossing
of.
Bridge. And that is it. And holy cow, this was a really long video. And thank you so much to all of you that watched it all the way to the end. As always, if you guys caught anything in the trailer that I missed, or perhaps something that I got wrong, put it down below in the comments. I do appreciate that. I will certainly take a look at it and try to touch up on things in a future video. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Get ready. We have a panel from hell coming up on July 7th.